World of Warcraft is a massive multiplayer online role-playing game which was released in 2004 by Blizzard Entertainment. WoW had 5,301,147 active players as of this March. One of the game's early antagonists was Arthas Menethil. In this speech, I will be informing you on a simplified history of this character during the Wrath of the Lich King expansion, released in 2008, and how he came to be one of the most iconic Lich Kings, simply focusing on the most important events that directly led him to become one of Azeroth's most iconic villains. A Lich King, without getting into the many details, is a very powerful being that was created by an even more powerful being named Kil'jaeden to serve as the commander of the Scourge, an army of undead. As with all histories, we need to start at the beginning. Arthas Menethil was the crown prince of Lordaeron and Knight of the Silver Hand. He was the son of King Tyrannus Menethil II and heir to Lordaeron's throne. He was mentored as a paladin by Uther the Lightbringer, after which Arthas was inducted into the Knights of the Silver Hand at the young age of 19. As a young boy, Arthas would sneak out of the castle to play with his friend Jarim Balnir at the Balnir farmstead. Arthas witnessed the birth of a foal, and an instant connection between the two was formed. Arthas named the horse Invincible. Arthas was warned that Invincible wasn't quite ready to ride safely yet, and that the ice would make it very dangerous for them to go riding. But, as we all know, children do whatever you tell them not to. On their little gallivant through the woods, Invincible slipped on the ice and was injured. To relieve the mighty beast of its suffering, Arthas killed and buried it. This tragedy is one of quite a few to come. A bit later, Arthas met a noble girl from Kultiras named Jaina Proudmoore. I don't like Jaina. In addition to spending a lot of time together, the two would also slip away from the castle to sneak peeks into the nearby orc internment camps. The sight of living beings being forced to endure such dreadful treatment would be scarring for anyone. Soon after, Jaina was sent off to study with the Kirin Tor mages in the city of Dalaran, where she would become a very powerful frost mage. Even though we don't like her, that's still pretty cool. Fast forward to the most historically notable occurrence, the culling of Stratholme. Throughout the kingdom of Lordaeron, a grain infected with the curse of undeath, courtesy of the necromancer Kel'Thuzad, was distributed to villages across the kingdom. This curse-infected grain would turn all who had consumed it into merciless soldiers of what would soon become called the Scourge Army, aka Kil'jaeden's hopeful undead army that the Lich King would soon lead. Anyways, my bad. Prince Arthas, with his father's blessing, set out with a group of his fellow paladins, his mentor Uther, as well as his love interest Jaina Proudmoore, to the village of Stratholme. As they entered the village, it became apparent that something wasn't quite right. It seemed like a ghost town. Arthas had always valued the well-being of his people above all else, but there was no way of knowing who was actually infected. So, Arthas decided that the only way to help these people was to purge the village of all its inhabitants, meaning burn it to the ground. Uther, The other paladins and Jaina refuse to help him commit what they believe as an unnecessary atrocity, so Arthas dismissed them. As Arthas set the village ablaze, Jaina watched for a moment in horror as the man she once loved murdered innocent people, and then she left. A bit later, like a few years or so, Arthas was told by a warlock named Meggan to go to a faraway land and retrieve a powerful magical weapon, a sword called Frostmourne, which Arthas was led to believe was the key to defeating the Scourge and saving his people. Upon wielding the blade, his soul became bound to the Lich King. Arthas returned home, where the Lich King's thirst for power, as well as Arthas's rage and pain, resulted in Arthas killing his father, King Tyrannus, and his mentor, Uther. He then ventured to the grave of his loyal companion, Invincible, and using Frostmourne's power to raise the dead as members of the Scourge, Arthas raised his mighty steed. He also did a lot of other really morally questionable things. It's morally questionable because there's the whole, was it Arthas making those decisions, or was it the Lich King's extremely powerful corruption taking over Arthas's mind and therefore his actions? But we won't get into that. But that is the super simplified story of how Arthas Menethil became one of World of Warcraft's most iconic Lich Kings.